wild steppes of Kazakhstan to little fishing villages in Cornwall, because it's my conversation with celebrity chef Rick Stein, and he's one of the original TV celebrity chefs. Rick Stein has cooked for the Queen and for most of her prime ministers, from Margaret Thatcher to Tony Blair, and he's made Cornwall a red-hot destination for food lovers all over the world. And for that, believe it or not, he's become a controversial figure. We spoke about his culinary adventures in the Mediterranean, and the food of Corsica, Greece, Turkey and Morocco in his cookbook that's called Rick Stein's Mediterranean Escapes.
Very nice to be here. It's nice to have a good chat.
Nice to have a good chat, isn't it? Now, looking at this book with all this luscious food in it, why aren't you enormously overweight? I mean, because this stuff's full of oil and it's delicious and it's nutritious too. But how have you done this? How come you're a slender, fine-looking man, Rick Stein? How have you done this?
Well, I'm not that slender, actually, but I must say one of the things that we discovered about Mediterranean cuisine is how good it is for you. And there's not a lot of, virtually no butter, no milk, no cream. Not much meat, lots of fish, lots of vegetables, lots of fruit. Olive oil, yes, bit fattening, but you don't, worry too much about that. So it's basically, you don't see many fat people in the Mediterranean.
No, you don't. You wonder how they're able to pull it off, and I suppose it's because of that lack of maybe animal fats in the food itself. You've always been a great evangelist for fish and for seafood, as not just as something that's lovely to eat, but something that's good for you as well.
Yeah, I have. I mean, funnily enough, my brother does research into the brain. He's a neurophysiologist, and he's really into omega-3. So, I mean, I take omega-3 fish oil tablets every morning as a result of that. But I do think it's true that what he says is what our grandmother said, that fish was good for you, is true. It's good for the brain. It really is.
You've said that nothing is more exhilarating than fresh fish simply cooked. What does that mean for you? Just barbecued or what?
Yeah, I mean, just the simpler the better. I mean, somebody was asking me yesterday what my perfect breakfast would be, and I'd just say a grilled mackerel with just a little salad of chopped shallots, olive oil, lemon juice, salt and pepper. Thank you very much.
How about you go to somewhere like Thailand and in Australia as well, they'll cook fish with just a bit of garlic, a bit of ginger, a bit of lemongrass and some coriander. How about that style of fish?
Oh, I love it. In fact, the next series after this one is going to be Southeast Asia. And hopefully the director, David, is saying, let's finish the series off in far north Queensland.
Find you in some terry-toweling shorts, grilling a barramundi.
Yeah.
Over an open fire somewhere.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic. Any truth in the claims of the aphrodisiac qualities of seafood, Rick Stein?
I don't think there's any sort of scientific or chemical truth in it, but I think...
Anecdotal?
well, let us put a veil over that one. I do think, though, that fish, seafood makes you happy, makes you optimistic. And as such, maybe it's true, yes.
I mean, many people say after they've had a dozen oysters, hello, they sort of go, I feel rather good right now, don't they? I mean... what can one say about oysters in that respect? Again, not a lot, but... I think it's the champagne, actually. The champagne is what's doing it, isn't it? It's making the oysters seem better than they really are. Now, interestingly enough, in this Mediterranean journey of yours, you go to Corsica. Corsica is a place a lot of people don't really go to. It's off the beaten track. It's an island, of course. Tell me why Corsica?
Well, I mean, it was just the obvious place to go from Marseille. As I said, we finished the last series in Marseille, so we set out from Marseille for the new series and took a ferry to Corsica, the ferry called the Napoleon Bonaparte, fittingly. I had been to Corsica before, and I must say, not looking forward to it, because to tell you the truth, I didn't really like the food in Corsica the first time I went. And that's simply because there's not a lot of seafood there.
Not a lot of seafood?
No, it's really weird, but it's one of those islands that the coast of Corsica was traditionally very swampy and filled with malaria. Plus, it was one of those islands that was constantly being attacked by either pirates or other nations. So the population lived inland, and Corsica is the most mountainous island, I would guess, in the whole of the Mediterranean, used to live up in the mountains. So their food is largely mountain food, sausage, hams, lots of chestnuts, game, and fantastic cheese. I mean, the sheep's cheese of Corsica is a work of art, no question about it. In fact, in the series, we were talking to this shepherd who makes his own cheese and real artisan stuff. I mean, these are seriously skillful cheesemaker. And he was moaning about the fact that the French bring milk in from the mainland, make the cheese in Corsica, call it Corsican cheese. And I was saying, oh God, there is no justice in life. This cynical marketing, it's not on.
Rick, you say the Turks' skill and reverence for barbecue cooking is unequalled anywhere else I've been. Now, that's a big claim to make in a country like Australia, Rick.
Certainly is. But
get you in big trouble in a country like this.
One of the things that we went to far eastern Turkey, I mean, not on the Mediterranean, because it was all about the Mediterranean Sea, but we went to that bit of Turkey which is next to the Syrian border. And we went inland a bit, so we was beginning to feel quite sort of like out in the eastern plains on the steppes, you know, and it was sort of like cattle country and horse country. And talking to the people at a place called Gaziantep, which is held to be the kebab centre of Turkey, it's the food of nomads. It's that sort of barbecue cooking came from people travelling great distances on horseback, pitching camp, putting a fire, finding the easiest way to cook food on a sort of in a travelling situation.
So what makes their barbecue distinctive? Is it the wood that they burn?
They use charcoal, and people say to me that there is no difference between a gas barbecue and a charcoal barbecue. I'd say forget it. There is. If you're cooking charcoal cooking in Turkey, they have a long barbecue which they call a mangal, so it's sort of long and thin. At one end, they're constantly building up a new fire, and at the other end, they're cooking, and they're moving the hot coals down the mangal all the time. So you always get this flavour of charcoal. You know that lovely smell when you're in somewhere like Greece, that lovely smell of
smokiness. Yeah.
Smokiness, and that imbues the kebabs. And you don't get that with gas cooking. People say, oh, it's just about the fat falling into the coals and burning back up and flavouring the meat. But the Turks know about that flavour of charcoal too, and they're skillful. I mean, I watched this guy cook a steak. First of all, he cut the grouper up with like a sort of meat axe, with his fingers so close to where he's holding the fish, but with incredible dexterity. And this was a barbecue restaurant, seafood barbecue restaurant by the sea, and he then went with great ceremony. He looked like something out of Midnight Express because he was like really fat and bald and very pleased with himself and very proud. And then he proceeded to cook this grouper with such skill. I mean, I just love watching that. I love watching where people are really into what they're doing cooking-wise. It means a lot to me.
Now, Rick, you're sort of basing your time between Sydney and Cornwall. Cornwall's been your home base for decades now. What brought you to Cornwall in the first place?
My parents, actually, funnily enough, my name is German, right? And my grandparents, my grandfather went to England at the beginning of the 20th century, left Dusseldorf to set up my family were winemakers in Germany, and set up a wine business, importing business in London. Along came the Second World War. Name like Stein, bricks through the window, all that sort of thing.
Were Germans interned in Britain?
Well, I mean, by then, my grandparents were citizens of Britain, but with a name like Stein, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. So they bought a house in Cornwall because people, weren't so heavy on the war, really, and sent the children to Cornwall. That's my parents, my father, for long periods. And that's where my connection with Cornwall happened. It was in about 1915.